Corporate-dominated industrial agriculture is exacerbating the climate crisis and biodiversity loss, leaving people more vulnerable to famine. There has never been greater urgency to adopt agricultural models that are more environmentally sound. And yet, Bill Gates and other US philanthropists are doubling down, funding industrial approaches to agriculture and techno-fixes that they insist will feed the world and solve climate change. But what does the science say? In Africa, climate change is expected to reduce food production capacity by as much as 20%, with hundreds of millions of people severely affected by droughts, heat waves, and other natural disasters. Faced with this dire outlook, African farmers are demanding more support for agroecology, a farmer-led solution to climate change and food security. Agroecology is an approach to farming that mimics and preserves ecosystems. This includes growing diverse crops, applying compost and manure to improve soil fertility, and avoiding expensive, toxic fossil fuel-based inputs.
Nous avons constaté que les sols qui reçoivent sur plusieurs années des graines qui sont enrobées dans des produits chimiques, ces sols petit à petit se dégradent. Pourquoi? Parce que à chaque fois, il faut mettre de nouveaux produits chimiques pour sauver la plante. Donc, au fur et à mesure, le sol va perdre sa capacité microbiologique et le sol va commencer à mourir.
As our climate continues to change, agroecology helps farmers adapt. For example, by enhancing drought-resistant food production systems. It combines research, innovation, and experimentation with local and indigenous knowledge. And because it is grounded in principles of social justice, agroecology ensures that farmers, not multinational corporations, are in control of food production. The evidence is clear. Agroecology works. Time and again, scientific studies demonstrate that agroecology increases yields and provides healthy and sustainable diets while decreasing input costs and boosting farm profitability. For example, in Malawi, rates of household food security increased by 33% when farmers diversified their crops and added organic material to the soil, while rates of dietary diversity increased by 24%. In Benin, farmers had 50 to 60% higher yields after adopting sustainable land management practices. Even in Europe, models have shown that agroecology can meet food needs for both domestic consumption and export, while reducing emissions by up to 45%. Globally, both the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have made it clear that we must scale up agroecology to reduce hunger and cope with climate change. Philanthropists like Bill Gates claim to care about these issues, but they continue to pour money into a narrow set of scientific approaches that create opportunities for agri-businesses to profit, but do not address the root causes of hunger, mitigate the climate crisis, or help small-scale farmers. The Gates Foundation has spent billions of dollars and funded thousands of projects on chemical inputs and gene technologies at universities, research institutes, and companies around the world, but has funded only one project explicitly focused on agroecology. And it is the primary funder of the Cornell Alliance for Science, which has launched smear campaigns against agroecology and its proponents, while advocating aggressively for GMOs. Yet, GMOs are not the silver bullet they're often made out to be. After decades of costly investments and lofty promises, companies and researchers have consistently failed to produce successful drought-tolerant GMO crops that can assist in adaptation to climate change. By contrast, climate-adapted seeds developed through quicker and cheaper traditional breeding practices are already being grown and exchanged by farmers. Plus, only a handful of crops have been genetically modified, and they are the ones often grown for industrial uses, such as soybeans, maize, and cotton. These GMO crops are extremely dependent on expensive fossil fuel-based fertilizers and in some cases result in increased use of toxic pesticides.
And actually, who is feeding the world despite this growing population? And the level of production that we are having is not because biotechnology, it's because that people have been resisting the resilience on relying on the agroecological system that they have been feeding themselves. From the food crisis in 2008, where Mali was producing about 2.8 million tons of cereal at that moment, now we are producing up to 9 million tons of cereal in my country. And the population growth, if you look at the trend of a population growth, we are producing more and there is no single GM seed in my country.
Donc, vous voyez que nous partons de façon très, très simplifiée des éléments de la génétique. Mais au fur et à mesure que nous simplifions, nous nous rendons compte que nous affaiblissons notre réponse face à d'autres problèmes qui naissent. Et ces problèmes ne sont pas simplifiés. Nous nous simplifions et nous nous rendons compte que la nature ne simplifie pas. Et progressivement, la science s'est rendue compte que notre démarche est une démarche erronée. Il faut entrevoir une autre démarche, essayer de copier la nature, comment la nature réagit et nous montre des solutions et comment nous aussi nous pouvons nous adapter à cela. C'est tout le fondement de l'agroécologie.
The evidence shows the benefits of farmer-led agroecology and indigenous food production methods. Scientists and small-scale food producers are already working together to implement appropriate and sustainable innovations in African food systems. Yet powerful institutions continue to fund corporate-friendly science, doing little to encourage vibrant, open-minded inquiry and failing to meaningfully address hunger. What's more, they're using their influence to drive global agendas in favor of these flawed approaches while undermining demands for more research on agroecology.
Upstream side, there are two key things that need really to be funded. The first one is research on farmer seeds at different levels, because there are so many potentials that exist in this farmer seed. Second thing that needs really to be supported also is all the researches on organic fertilizers, by the composition, by also doing some research on the mixtures and the level of some of these specific nutriment that should be controlled, but also online with all the research that are done actually in the quality of the soil. There is a need also to address the nutrition side of agroecological products and to see how the best way to process these products so that they can feed more sustainably the cities. Because we don't have to forget that if we are not trying to stabilize the level of consumption at the cities level, there will be a big problem.
Nos recherches scientifiques, petit à petit, ont été phagocytées par des recherches scientifiques qui sont venues des pays développés. Le néolibéralisme, ce sont des paradigmes de production, de productivité à outrance. Cette vision va pénétrer l'agriculture et petit à petit, nos pays ne vont plus financer des recherches holistiques, globales, cela vont aussi se diriger vers des pratiques linéaires qui ont été imposées à tous les pays du monde.
To build a more climate-resilient food system, we must pressure philanthropists, institutions, and political leaders to move away from industrial models and support farmer-driven solutions instead. Stay tuned for a look at agroecology in practice.